Hello, I'm Tomoya Kinoshita from Tokyo Metropolitan University, Japan. In this video, we'd like to talk about a new model of framing phenomena in online social networks that considers resonance driven by the external stimuli. First, we will talk about the background and objectives. In recent years, social media services have spread rapidly. Society is actively exchanging a lot of information through them. However, the explosive user dynamics, such as online framing, often causes damage to individuals' and companies' activities. Currently, some countermeasures are being taken from a sociological perspective. It takes a lot of time and effort to cope with each case. To take countermeasures more quickly and minimize the damage, we need to clarify the impact of user activities on its occurrence. In previous work, the oscillation model on networks was proposed. It is based on the wave equations on networks and describes user dynamics in online social networks. Also, the oscillation model clarifies that online framing arises when some eigenvalues of the matrix expressing network structure are non-real numbers. On the other hand, it also revealed that online framing does not arise when all the matrix eigenvalues are real numbers. Here, conventional models considered only the network structure in elucidating online framing, so ignored the impact of external influences, such as the information distributed by mass media. Therefore, we consider online framing attributable to external influences. Since information dissemination can trigger its sharing or discussion among users, it sometimes activates the user activity sharply. To analyze online framing involving external influences from engineering perspectives, we need to incorporate information dissemination into the oscillation model. Considering that information spreads in online social networks at a finite speed, external influences should be represented as a wave in the wave equation-based model. Therefore, we consider information dissemination as a periodic external stimulus. Objective of our study is modeling online framing that considers external stimuli. It is possible even if all the matrix eigenvalues describing network structure are real numbers. We explain mathematical representation of online social networks. Online social networks are expressed by directed graphs because the relationship between users is asymmetric. Let Wij be the weight of the directed link from node I to node j, and let E be the set of directed links. Wij denotes the magnitude of the effect of node j on node I. Adjacency matrix A and degree matrix D are defined as these forms. Adjacency matrix A represents the link structure, and degree matrix D represents the degree of each node. Laplacian matrix L of the directed graph is defined as D minus A. In general, Laplacian matrix L is asymmetric. We can analyze the networks quantitatively by expressing the network structure as a matrix. Here, in specific directed graphs, we can reduce the link asymmetry to the weight of each node. We call them symmetrizable directed graphs. Figure in this slide shows an example of symmetrization. The number next to each node represents its own weight. It is known that all the eigenvalues of the Laplacian matrix L0 of the symmetrizable directed graph are real numbers. We introduce the scaled Laplacian matrix S0 defined as this, where M is diagonal matrix, Mi is greater than 0, and it is the weight of node I. Note that S0 is a real symmetric matrix, and it has the same eigenvalues as L0. Scaling to the symmetric matrix facilitates analyzation of the symmetrizable directed graph. Here, we only work with symmetrizable directed graphs because they are a desirable premise for discussing the occurrence of online framing associated with the injections of external stimuli. Next, we explain forced oscillation on networks. We impose a periodic external stimulus with frequency omega and amplitude f on a certain node j in the network. Also, xi omega t is the state of node I at time t, and x omega t is the state vector. Each node is subjected to two kinds of force. First, restoring force. It is proportional to the difference of the states of adjacent nodes. Second, damping force. It is proportional to the velocity of the node. The equation of motion of the forced oscillation on networks is written by using the Laplacian matrix L0 as this. Also, this equation of motion can be decomposed into oscillation modes mu omega t as this. This means that the oscillation dynamics on symmetrizable directed networks can be expressed by superposing the oscillations of each oscillation mode. In the next slide, we explain the relationships between oscillation phenomena and user dynamics on networks. Node centrality is the index expressing the significance of each node in networks. There are several kinds of node centrality. For example, degree centrality means the grade of contribution to information propagation. Also, betweenness centrality means the grade of making information widely known. However, node centrality is determined by network topology only, so it does not take into account the biases between nodes on the strengths of information exchange and transmission. Then, oscillation energy of node gives a generalized notion of node centrality. That is, it reflects characteristics of the online social network, such as the biases between users. Therefore, it can be regarded as the strength of node activity in online social networks. So, let's get back to talking about the oscillation model. The stationary solution of the equation for the oscillation mode is here, where A mu omega is amplitude of oscillation modes, theta mu omega is initial phase, and omega mu is eigenfrequency. Omega mu is the square root of eigenvalue lambda mu. In practice, since amplitude A mu omega cannot be observed directly, we observe the oscillation energy in the stationary state. The oscillation energy EI omega of node I is written as this. From the structures of the formula of amplitude mu omega, oscillation energy increases sharply when omega is approximately equal to omega mu. This phenomenon is called resonance. The divergence of oscillation energy due to resonance can be regarded as explosive activation of user dynamics. In the next slide, we consider the meaning of damping coefficient gamma. Damping coefficient gamma is the parameter representing the diminishment of user interest in the information. We assume that the value of gamma is determined by the content of information. That is, it is small when information is newsworthy and attractive. As shown in the figure below, gamma affects the strength and the abruptness of resonance. So, if gamma is small, it can cause the increase of oscillation energy of each node. Next, we consider the resonance to external stimuli in online social networks. When mass media broadcasts certain attractive information, user discussions about it become heated. Therefore, information diffusion through mass media activates user activity. To express this phenomenon in engineering terms, we consider that network structure changes so that the oscillation energy of each node increases. This means that an eigenfrequency approaches to angular frequency omega of forced oscillation. Finally, the network after structure changes resonates to an external stimulus with omega. Based on these conditions, we propose the concept of the model of online framing. First, mass media imports a periodic external stimulus with small gamma on a node. Second, network structure changes due to the external stimulus. Third, the network after structure changes resonates to the external stimulus with angular frequency omega. Ultimately, the oscillation energy of each node increases sharply. That is, the activities of users on the network is sharply activates. It can be regarded as online framing. Here, we conduct numerical experiments on online framing. We use the symmetrizable directed graphs with 4 nodes as the network model. L0 is the Laplacian matrix of these graphs, and omega mu is the eigenfrequency of L0. We input a periodic external stimulus into node 1 and observe the oscillation energy of each node. These figures on the right side show the oscillation energy of each node for several damping coefficients gamma and various angular frequencies omega. The vertical axis represents the oscillation energy, and the horizontal axis the angular frequency omega of forced oscillation. From these figures, we find that resonance occurs when omega is approximately equal to omega mu. Also, the smaller damping coefficient gamma is, the higher intensity of the resonance is. Since the strength of resonance directly affects the magnitude of oscillation energy, these results show that the explosive user dynamics, including online framing, occurs when omega is approximately equal to omega mu, and gamma is small. Now, we explain a theoretical framework for observing the Omen of online framing to trigger preventive measures. We consider solving the equations of motion for the oscillation mode A mu omega t. When the oscillation energy of each node increases sharply, that is, omega is approximately equal to omega mu, and gamma is sufficiently small value. The approximate solution of the equations of motion is here. Also, in the case of small t, It can be rewritten by using the sum-to-product formula as here. Focusing on this solution, since omega is approximately equal to omega mu, the wave represented by the sine component has a low frequency. Thus, the solution of the equation of motion yields the appearance of low-frequency beats. Next, to confirm the validity of the theoretical framework, we conduct simulations on Omen of online framing. To describe the behavior of each node, we introduce some node state variables. xi omega t is the state of node I at time t, and let vi omega t be its time partial derivative. Based on the equations of motion of the node state, the discrete time temporal evolution equations of xi omega t and vi omega t can be written as here. Note that delta t is sufficiently small value. We simulate node behaviors based on these formulas. Also, we observe the kinetic energy ki omega t of node I. It is written by using the weight mi of node I and vi omega t. Since kinetic energy is part of the oscillation energy, it also can be regarded as the strength of node activity. In these simulations, we use the symmetrizable directed graph with 5 nodes as the network model. L0 is the Laplacian matrix of this graph, and omega mu is the eigenfrequency of L0. We input a periodic external stimulus into node 1 and derive the kinetic energy of node 5. Also, focusing on the value of the eigenfrequency omega 1, we reveal the relationships between the approach of two kinds of frequency and the occurrence of low-frequency beats. These figures below show the temporal changes of kinetic energy under several conditions A, B, and C. The vertical axis represents simple moving averages of kinetic energy, and the horizontal axis represents time. Comparing these figures, the smaller the difference between omega and omega 1 is, the lower the frequency of the beats is, and the larger the convergence value of simple moving averages of kinetic energy is. Considering these results in relation to the model of online framing, the beat shifts to lower frequency by the influence of network structure changes. Therefore, we can regard these phenomena as the omen of online framing. In conclusion, we proposed a model of online framing in social networks that considers the resonance imposed by periodic external stimuli. This is a new model that describes how explosive user dynamics can be triggered by the spread of information by mass media. Also, we provided a theoretical explanation on the appearance of low-frequency beats. The emergence of such beats is a useful omen of online framing that will enable countermeasures to be implemented. In the future, we will introduce a model of network structure changes driven by external stimuli. Also, we will conduct the simulations using more complex and large-scale network models representing actual online social networks. Thank you for listening.